Humanity watched the broadcast in absolute stillness, the kind of silence that forms only when an entire species feels the same impact at the same moment. The Galactic Empire's herald appeared, towering in his obsidian armor, surrounded by banners forged from conquered worlds. His voice carried across the galaxy, announcing the lesson they intended to teach. Then the feed shifted, revealing the human megacolony suspended beneath a pale star in the Carina expanse. Families sheltered in domes, cities pulsed with ordinary life, and children played near orbital gardens. All of it had been seized days earlier without warning. The Empire wanted a demonstration, something to frighten every watching civilization. Their commanders ordered their planet crackers into firing position above the colony. Hundreds of alien observers cheered, expecting terror and chaos from Earth. Instead, the human broadcast channels remained quiet, monitoring every detail with chilling focus. No one on Earth pleaded. No political leader begged. The world held its breath, not out of weakness, but because grief and resolve were rising in equal measure. The Empire began the destruction methodically. A beam of stellar fire carved through the colony's crust, turning entire regions into oceans of molten stone. Orbital habitats ruptured as their atmospheres ignited. Communication towers fell into ash storms. Entire continents buckled under the bombardment. Cameras captured terrified faces, broken cities, collapsing skylines, and the echo of billions of voices fading into static. The transmission refused to look away. Every continent, every district, every person was shown in agonizing clarity as the Empire annihilated them. When the final strike hit, the colony split apart at the mantle. Oceans vaporized. Debris spiraled into the void. The population, 10 billion, vanished in a storm of light. The Empire cut the feed, satisfied with their own brutality. Their herald returned to the screen, declaring humanity broken, humbled, and helpless. He smirked, eager for fear to ripple across every world tuned in. Earth did not respond. Across the Sol system, billions of humans sat motionless. The shock was real, but the silence carried an unexpected weight. The Empire had misread humanity completely. They expected panic. They expected despair. They expected submission. What they received was far more dangerous. This silence did not belong to the defeated. It belonged to a predator assessing the wound before striking back. In the UNDF war room beneath the Pacific, the Emergency Council gathered without raising their voices. No shouting, no panic, only a cold, razor-sharp clarity. Caliban, the strategic AI restricted for centuries, analyzed the broadcast frame by frame, mapping trajectories, identifying weapons signatures, and cataloging Empire patterns. Admiral Rourke authorized Code HFY, a directive buried since the pre-Exodus era. It allowed forgotten protocols to surface, unlocking command chains sealed for generations. Every major city shifted into wartime readiness without alarms. Fabrication centers switched to military output. Orbital shipyards rerouted power to dormant constructs. Civilians who had lost entire families stepped forward to volunteer as if driven by a shared instinct. Humanity was not collapsing. It was converging. Meanwhile, alien governments monitoring Earth felt something unsettling. There were no riots, no fractures, no cries for surrender. Instead, billions of humans inhaled together as though preparing for the longest, most controlled strike in their species' history. Entire cultures felt the change ripple through them. Empires that had mocked Earth for being emotional and fragile watched in confusion as the species they underestimated transformed into a unified, calculating force. Earth's leaders convened for a single broadcast, not to plead, but to issue a declaration. The message transmitted across every accessible channel. This is a blood debt. And we will collect it. No threats. No shouting. Just a statement spoken with the weight of 10 billion souls behind it. Other species heard it, and felt something primal awaken, an understanding that the galaxy had misjudged the one species that thrived when cornered. While the Empire reveled in their spectacle, believing they had broken humanity's spirit, a different truth formed in the shadows of Sol. The silence hardened into purpose. The grief sharpened into direction. Humanity was no longer reacting. Humanity was preparing. As the last remnants of the broadcast flickered out across the network, the Empire celebrated their cruelty. They believed the galaxy would tremble at their victory. Instead, they had created something far worse for themselves, a unified human civilization with nothing left to lose and every reason to strike with absolute force. What the Empire had mistaken for fear was the quiet before an inevitable reckoning. Humanity had absorbed the blow, and in the vast stillness that followed, a promise crystallized across every human heart. They would not simply retaliate. They would make certain no one in the galaxy ever dared to harm their kind again. The moment HFY activated, humanity's hidden infrastructure stirred like a giant waking from a centuries-long sleep. Deep beneath Antarctica, ice cracked as ancient vault doors unlocked through biometric keys held by 3 admirals. In the Pacific trenches, pressure-sealed hangars lit with red emergency bands as dormant constructs powered on. On the far side of the moon, Mere labs shifted from peaceful research to classified warfare systems without hesitation. Nothing moved with panic, everything moved with practiced precision, as though the species had always known this day would come. Caliban brought every fragment of the Empire's broadcast under forensic scrutiny. Weapon signatures, firing delays, hull compositions, reactor fluctuations, each was dissected, catalogued, and integrated into retaliation models. Human analysts worked in tandem with the AI, merging instinct with computational certainty. The synergy created a strategic mind that no empire had ever encountered. The AI suggested pathways. Humans refined them with intuition algorithms could never imitate. Together they designed a doctrine built not on rage, but inevitability. The Leviathan program, once dismissed as rumor even within Earth's highest circles, finally emerged from myth. Kilometers-long dreadnoughts, hidden in abyssal vaults and lunar caverns, initiated ignition cycles dormant for 200 years. These colossal vessels were engineered for one purpose: to counter a threat capable of extinguishing entire worlds. The designers had prepared them as humanity's last insurance, never truly believing they would be required. The Empire's massacre changed that. Fabricators across Mars, Titan, Ganymede, and Earth switched to full military priority. Civilian industries transitioned smoothly, not through coercion, but through a shared conviction. Every worker understood the stakes. Families who lost loved ones channeled their anguish into production, fueling assembly lines with determination instead of fear. Even children, aware of the tragedy, offered help in supply stations and relief centers, showing the same resilience as the adults around them. Special Forces command centers called for volunteers and were overwhelmed by numbers within minutes. Many arrived carrying only a name, a photo, or a memory of someone they had lost, driven not by desperation but by unwavering purpose. Augmentation chambers, sealed since the Titan Wars, reactivated. Gravitic exoshells calibrated to each soldier, optimizing strength, speed, and endurance beyond conventional limits. Neuralink training accelerated learning curves, merging human instinct with tactical overlays in real time. Orbital fleets reorganized into modular strike groups designed for adaptability. Every vessel received updated singularity shielding and adaptive armor capable of countering Empire weapons. Fighter wings deployed with quantum thrust engines, granting unmatched maneuverability in vacuum and atmosphere. Weapons engineers unveiled experimental systems once considered too dangerous or unpredictable for peacetime: compressed singularity projectors, event horizon torpedoes, and harmonic disruptors capable of folding warship plating like paper. Diplomatic channels activated with unusual clarity. Earth's envoys contacted neutral and rival species not with pleas, but with warnings. The message was simple: move aside. Humanity was not coming to conquer them, but it would not slow for anyone standing in its path. Some species listened immediately, terrified by humanity's sudden transformation. Borders opened, travel lanes cleared, and spectators retreated from contested zones to avoid becoming collateral. Other civilizations attempted to lecture or negotiate restraint, but Earth remained unwavering. The massacre had removed any ambiguity about the Empire's intentions. This was not conflict. This was extermination. And humanity refused to be erased. As humanity prepared, the Empire misread every signal. Their analysts interpreted the silence as paralysis, the mobilization as disorganized desperation, the fleet movement as chaotic scrambling. They believed humans lacked the will to escalate further. They believed Earth's technology lagged generations behind their own. They believed the massacre had broken humanity's spine. What they failed to grasp was that humans evolved under the pressure of extinction-level threats, inventing ways to survive even when survival seemed impossible. Preparation was woven into their nature. The Empire had attacked a species that turned catastrophe into momentum. The first Leviathan rose from Europa's oceans like a living mountain, water cascading down its armored plates as its cores hummed with restrained power. It ascended into the void with the calm inevitability of a tide returning to shore. Similar silhouettes emerged across the system, each one a testament to human engineering and human resolve. By the time the Empire realized what had been awakened, it was already too late. Humanity's arsenal was not a response. It had been waiting, slumbering, anticipating the moment when it would be needed. And now the moment had arrived. Humanity's return to the Carina Expanse began with a jump that refracted starlight across a region still scarred from the massacre. The fleet arrived without ceremonial broadcasts or triumphant declarations. Sensors activated instantly, mapping devastation that surpassed every projection. Continents reduced to molten scars, orbital rings shattered into ribbons of metal, atmospheric remnants drifting like ghostly veils. Everything testified to the scale of the Empire's cruelty. Human crews absorbed the sight in silence, letting grief become fuel rather than paralysis. Recovery drones deployed first, sweeping debris fields for black boxes and biological traces. Amid drifting ruins lay sealed pods containing survivors who had evaded detection by fleeing into underground vaults before the Empire's assault. Their signals were weak, almost indistinguishable from background radiation, yet humanity found them. Marines extracted them with care, escorting them aboard medical transports. Those rescued described the horror with voices drained of emotion. Their testimonies provided confirmation of Empire orders, including recordings of command signatures embedded in the planet cracker fire sequences. Every piece of evidence was transmitted to Caliban, expanding the strategic framework for retaliation. The AI cross-referenced the data with prior Empire battles, identifying structural weaknesses in their logistics networks. With that knowledge, humanity prepared for its first offensive strike. The first expeditionary armada aligned around the Leviathans, forming a spear point aimed at the nearest Empire-held system, an outpost once considered impenetrable. The Empire stationed 300 ships around the target world, confident their defensive grid could repel anything. They expected a cautious probe, perhaps a small task force meant to test their strength. What arrived instead were dreadnought silhouettes radiating gravitational distortions that bent sensor readings. Imperial commanders dismissed the phenomenon as human incompetence, unaware they were misinterpreting power signatures far beyond their experience. The Leviathan leading the assault charged its primary lance, a weapon designed to shear through matter by manipulating space-time tension. When it fired, the beam didn't resemble energy but a razor of condensed reality. Imperial vessels vanished instantly, leaving only ionized trails where fleets once held formation. The surviving ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but human destroyers intercepted them with precision barrages. Every strike dismantled entire squadrons before their alarms finished sounding. Ground defenses fell next. Human dropships entered the atmosphere under adaptive shielding, landing shock troopers equipped with exoshells that absorbed impacts and amplified strength to superhuman levels. Empire garrisons mounted resistance, but the troopers cut through their lines with methods combining tactical discipline and sheer efficiency. Fortified bunkers collapsed under harmonic pulses calibrated to disintegrate metal without harming captured prisoners. Within hours, the world was secure, its infrastructure intact despite the battle's intensity. Captured officers claimed the Empire would unleash billions of soldiers in retaliation. Humanity responded not with threats, but with certainty. The Empire hadn't grasped that they faced a species accustomed to enduring losses and turning them into fuel. Panic had no place in human strategy. Each action, each deployment, each strike adhered to purpose rather than emotion. The next operations unfolded in rapid succession. Human fleets captured 6 neighboring systems by exploiting Empire blind spots. Transit lanes were severed, supply depots neutralized, and regional command hubs isolated. Empire communication networks flooded with contradictory reports, unable to understand how their defenses crumbled so quickly. Their analysts attributed human victories to luck or stolen technology, refusing to accept the truth. They had underestimated a civilization capable of compressing centuries of innovation into decades. As Earth solidified control of reclaimed sectors, a message broadcast from Seoul spread across neutral territories. It carried no threats. It simply stated, "We are reclaiming what was taken. Do not interfere." Species who once viewed humanity as fragile now witnessed a force capable of rearranging frontiers with frightening precision. Some fled border regions. Others prayed their systems would never draw humanity's scrutiny. The first expeditionary armada completed its initial campaign without losing a single Leviathan. The Empire lost entire sectors. With every world liberated, humanity's momentum grew. And beneath that growing power lay an unwavering promise: no atrocity committed against their people would remain unanswered. Empire High Command received its first full casualty report 3 weeks after the massacre, and the document shattered the illusion of their supremacy. Entire border fleets erased, fortified worlds captured in hours, supply networks disintegrating, and command hubs either silent or broadcasting distress calls. The aristocrats who once paraded their dominance now huddled in fortified chambers, their confidence collapsing under the weight of undeniable reality. They had provoked a species they barely understood, and now the consequences were arriving faster than they could absorb them. Imperial analysts replayed every battle recording, slowing each frame to identify how humanity had accomplished such decisive victories. What they found overturned centuries of assumptions. Terran dreadnoughts wielded singularity reactors refined to precision, not uncontrolled brute force. Their shields didn't rely on static frequencies but shifted harmonics dynamically, countering kinetic, energy, and plasma fire with seamless transitions. Their targeting systems fused neural intuition with algorithmic calculation, creating responses faster than any Empire-trained pilot. Empire scientists issued a warning to their rulers: humanity's technology was not merely advanced, it was adaptable, unpredictable, and engineered with a philosophy alien to the Empire's rigid doctrines. Terrans had built machines that evolved under pressure, learning in real time. Worse, they paired those systems with human minds capable of improvisation in ways no simulation could anticipate. Across the galaxy, species watching the conflict reassessed their long-held opinions. Records of past interactions with humans, once mocked as sentimental or chaotic, were reinterpreted as signs of quiet depth. A civilization that sings at memorials could also build weapons that bend gravity. A society that debates ethics could transform unity into a force stronger than any imperial chain of command. Humanity's complexity became their greatest advantage. Terran forces continued advancing with surgical precision. They targeted infrastructure instead of population centers, sabotaging Empire resource lines until entire sectors starved of fuel. Communications relays collapsed, isolating regional governors who were accustomed to absolute oversight. Panic spread through military ranks as commanders lost contact with their superiors. Propaganda no longer convinced anyone that victory was certain. Even loyalists whispered doubts, unable to reconcile the Empire's arrogance with the harsh truth unfolding before them. Humanity, meanwhile, strengthened its momentum. Morale reached heights unseen in human history. Every liberated world increased resolve. Every rescued survivor reinforced purpose. Families across Earth contributed however they could, transforming grief into unity. Students built parts for drones. Retirees joined logistics networks. Scientists collaborated across time zones to refine weapon enhancements. Soldiers operated with unwavering focus, driven by memories of those lost in the broadcast. Admirals coordinated fleets using synchronized jump corridors mapped by Caliban to maximize efficiency. Strike groups appeared where the Empire least expected, dismantling strongholds that once symbolized fear. No wasted movement, no emotional impulses, Only direct, decisive actions aligned with a single goal: dismantling the machinery that murdered billions. Empire officials attempted desperate measures. They issued conscription orders, forcing entire species under their rule to provide troops. They reactivated weapons considered too unstable for normal deployment. They even attempted diplomatic overtures, masking fear behind hollow promises. None of it slowed humanity. Terran intelligence intercepted every attempt and outmaneuvered them with effortless clarity. Alien nations caught in between faced a choice: flee, hide, or avoid involvement entirely. They watched Terran fleets slice through armadas that previously shaped galactic borders. Some races quietly erased anti-human records from their archives, afraid that anything insulting could be used as justification for future repercussions. Others sent apologies disguised as neutrality declarations, hoping to avoid attracting notice. Throughout all of this, humanity maintained a standard starkly different from the Empire's brutality. Terran forces minimized unnecessary casualties, treating civilians with respect regardless of species. They repaired water systems on liberated worlds, restored hospitals, and provided food shipments. These acts, contrasted with the Empire's cruelty, shifted galactic opinion rapidly. Humanity became not just an avenger but a symbol of balance, unforgiving toward enemies, protective toward innocents. By the time the Empire realized its strategic collapse, Terran fleets had already converged on the last fortified ring around their core territory. The Emperor demanded explanations from his advisors, but none could offer reassurance. They finally understood that the silence they saw after the massacre wasn't surrender. It was a verdict. As the final Leviathans gathered for the decisive campaign, the Empire's confidence evaporated completely. They had awakened a force built on loss, bound by unity, and driven by a resolve no empire could intimidate. Humanity wasn't seeking survival anymore. It was delivering judgment. The Empire gathered its last grand armada around the capital system, assembling more ships than any previous engagement in its history. 6,000 war vessels formed concentric rings around the Imperial core world, their formation meant to project unbreakable resolve. Yet beneath the rigid geometry lay desperation. Commanders issued orders with trembling voices. Crews whispered rumors about the Terran advance, rumors their superiors dismissed publicly but feared privately. No one admitted the truth aloud. Nothing they had deployed so far had slowed humanity even for a moment. Humanity arrived without theatrics, emerging from folded space in disciplined silence. 900 Terran ships materialized at once, their hulls shimmering with singularity shielding that distorted sensor readings. Leviathan dreadnoughts took forward positions, their gravitational contours rippling across the void. Empire tacticians, scanning the fleet, watched in horror as every projection they generated predicted their defeat with near-perfect certainty. Still, the Emperor demanded that the fleet stand its ground. Retreat was forbidden. Caliban initiated the offensive with a strategy tailored to dismantle the Empire's final defenses. Synchronized pulses rippled through Terran lines, triggering weapons systems that manipulated gravity rather than emitting conventional energy. The first strike was a silent collapse that compressed dozens of Empire vessels into metallic spheres before they registered the attack. Shockwaves never reached bystanders. Human engineering ensured destruction was contained to necessary targets. Imperial formations reacted too late, scrambling into chaotic maneuvers that disrupted their own firing lines. The Leviathans advanced, executing gravimetric sweeps that carved through cruiser wings as though slicing through mist. Terran destroyers darted between defensive grids, disabling power cores with irritation-level precision. Empire supercarriers attempted to launch fighter swarms, but harmonic disruptors scrambled their engines mid-deployment, leaving them drifting helplessly. The Emperor's elite guard fleet, once celebrated as unbeatable, shattered against the combined force of human technology and human will. As the Armada collapsed, the capital world activated planetary shields layered with centuries of enhancements. Terran fleets assessed the defense architecture and selected non-catastrophic breaching methods. Humanity aimed to end the Empire's reign, not annihilate billions of civilians trapped under Imperial rule. Focused singularity anchors disrupted shield frequencies, creating fractures wide enough for insertion teams. Dropships pierced the atmosphere, deploying units equipped with gravitic exoshells and reinforced neural links. City defenses fought with engineered ferocity, but Terran forces moved with unstoppable momentum. Their strategies blended machine-guided precision with instinctive adaptability. Defensive towers fell one by one. Armored legions bred for compliance shattered under disciplined human formations. Civilians, long oppressed by imperial cruelty, hid in silence as the sounds of battle echoed through the cities. For the first time, they dared to hope for liberation rather than punishment. The Emperor barricaded himself in the throne citadel, broadcasting proclamations of defiance to a galaxy no longer listening. Terran shock troopers breached the complex with calibrated charges, disabling defenses without collateral damage. They advanced through gilded halls depicting centuries of conquest, symbols of an empire built on suffering. The Emperor attempted one final declaration, but his voice faltered when human soldiers stepped into view. He realized, too late, that the species he dismissed as fragile had dismantled his entire empire in a single sustained campaign. His capture was transmitted across the galactic network, not as humiliation but as closure for countless worlds scarred by imperial domination. Human leadership announced that the era of cruelty was over. They pledged to dismantle the Empire's oppressive systems, free enslaved populations, and rebuild devastated regions through cooperative governance. The Interstellar Accord formed from that declaration, establishing protections against genocide, forced annexation, and systemic abuse. Many species feared humanity would replace the Empire with its own dominion. Instead, Terrans withdrew from conquered territories after securing stability, leaving local populations empowered to govern themselves. What humanity demanded was simple: accountability, justice, and remembrance for the billions lost. Memorial beacons ignited across former Imperial space, each one carrying the names of the colony destroyed in the broadcast, and standing as a warning to any who might consider repeating such crimes. Terran fleets returned to Sol not in triumph, but in mourning and honor. The ashes recovered from ruined worlds were carried aboard Leviathans, accompanied by the survivors who would begin new lives under Earth's protection. The galaxy watched humanity not as conquerors, but as a force capable of balancing compassion with overwhelming power. In the quiet aftermath, one truth settled across the stars. Humanity had learned the cost of restraint, and the galaxy had learned the cost of provoking them.